Welcome to planning. In this module and in this unit, we're going to look at the first function of management, planning. How managers decide how they're going to reach their goals with the resources that they have available. This is the thing that starts the entire management process in most organizations. And to start your planning process, you need to start with defining your mission and your vision. Now, these are the most basic statements about your organization, and they tend not to change over time, and they tend to shape everything else you do, all of the other plans you lay. So, a mission statement describes your organization's reason for being. This is why you exist. This is why the organization was created, why you come to work every day. And there are some really famous ones. One of my favorite is from a science fiction show, To Go Where No Man Has Gone Before. It describes very, very precisely and very succinctly exactly why the organization exists. A vision statement is also important, and a vision statement describes what you want to do and become in the future. This is a somewhat vaguer description than the mission statement, but it looks in the future and says this is how we'll know when we have met our mission, when we have accomplished this, because things will look a certain way. This is usually, our vision is to be the most effective organization at doing this, or to have cured cancer, or to have helped this group of people, or to have succeeded in this market. Very, very precise things that describe what you're going to look like in the future. From mission and vision statements, you then start to set goals. And goals are simply precise measurements that tell you how to accomplish that mission, how to reach that vision, the things that you will do along the way. So think of the vision and the mission statements as your destination. Your strategic plan is the plan for how you get to that destination. Here's a bit of a graphic. So we know that vision and mission then lead to strategy and strategic plans, which then lead to those specific goals and those measurements. Another way to think about it, though, your vision and your mission statement, that's your final destination. That's where you're going to go. That strategy, those strategic plans, that's the route you're going to follow. Imagine yourself reading a map and planning a route to your destination. Those specific goals and measurements, those are the signposts along the way that tell you how far you've gone, that warn you about possible dangers, needs to change your plan, and specific places where you need potentially to change plans or to rethink what you're doing. So throughout this, if you're a little confused about the relationship between vision, mission, strategy, plans, goals, and measurements, just think about it as a road trip. So strategy is how you plan to win the game. Most of us learn the concepts of strategy as children when we learn to play games. We're taught how to win at chess, how to win at cards, how to win at checkers, pool. All kinds of games have strategies. And the nature of the game, its rules, and the goals for winning the game define how you play, define the strategies that you use. So when we produce a strategic plan, which is typically the first plan a business or a large organization will produce, this is the long-term plan. It's driven by your mission. Long-term, for most businesses, 5 to 7 years is the planning period. For very, very fast-moving businesses in rapidly advancing industry, software, for example, sometimes that strategic plan will only be 3 or 4 years long, because by the time you get to 4 years, the world looks so different and you need to replan at that point. More stable organizations in more stable environments can lay longer-term plans. But it's always based on your expectations for the future, what you think the future will be like, which is why strategic planning involves forecasting and predicting the future. Strategic planning is seldom terribly detailed. We use other plans that are shorter term in nature that we'll talk about in just a moment, and those are the plans that hold the detail. So, a little bit of vocabulary on the planning. We've talked about strategic plans. Long-term, 5 to 7 years for most organizations. Sometimes an organization will plan for 10 or 15 years, but they recognize that most of the out years are not going to be terribly important. It's unlikely that 15 years from now the world will really look like you think it will look today. Once you've laid that strategic plan, though, you often want to lay these tactical or operating plans. These are short-term, more detailed plans, typically for about a year in length. And these describe what you're going to do in a year, how it fits into the strategic plan, but they offer more specific goals and more specific actions that you're going to take. Single-use plans are plans that are designed for a very specific situation that you expect only to happen once. You use the plan in that specific situation, and then the plan is pretty much finished. If the President of the United States is going to visit your organization, you might decide that you need an elaborate plan for how you will receive the President, how you will introduce the President, etc. Unless you expect the President to visit your organization on a regular basis, that's going to be a single-use plan. Scenario planning is when you're not quite sure what to expect from the future, so you lay lots of different possible plans that vary slightly from each other. And the idea is that these plans can then be compared. You're not quite sure the best way to arrive at a situation, so you lay 5 or 6 plans, and then you ask yourself, of all of these plans, which one looks like it's going to be the most successful? Contingency planning is the what-if plans. These are plans for possible unexpected events. Typically, it's crisis planning. It's what we do if the building catches fire. It's what we do if the airplane crashes. These are things that we know are possible, and while we may not expect them, we know that they could happen, and we have to be ready. So going back to our analogy of a road trip, the strategic plan would be the entire length of plan running to our final destination. Take out a 1-year slice in that plan, and that is your tactical or your operating plan. A single-use plan just happens once, and you return back to the main strategic planning path. Whereas a contingency plan can actually force you off from your primary plan, and you arrive at your destination from a completely different path. Scenario plans involve multiple plans laid on similar processes. Think of these as roads that run largely in parallel. The advantage here, and this is often, by the way, done with computer simulations, the advantage here is that I can decide which of these paths may be the lowest risk or may be the most likely to lead me to my final destination. So remember, plans tell us where we want to go and how we plan to get there. If you can't plan, you can't conduct the rest of your management functions. So my recommendation is develop first your vision and mission statement, then your strategic plan from that tactical, contingency, single-use, scenario-based planning. But always keep in mind the goal is to arrive at your final destination. This planning process will drive everything else you do managing the organization. This is planning. I would advise you to read the assigned chapter that supports this unit, read the questions attached to this unit and try to answer them. And if you're uncertain about planning in any way, please feel free to watch this video as often as you like.